Well, hi-ho everybody. Today we're going to have a little fun and do a color along together. I'm going to be using a brand of pencils called Joywish. It's my first time really diving into these, so it shall be an experience. We're going to be coloring my donut cat, or as I like to call it, my hole-in-one cat. These colors seem to be perfect for it. They have a nice selection of browns. I will be using that for the icing. And as for the kitty cat, I have no idea. I will cross that bridge when I get there. And as for the part of the donut that's the cake part, I'm going to use these two colors here, which is like a yellowish and an orange, because they don't have the exact color I would like to make it. And what I always try to do on these color alongs is I give you one of my illustrations so you can color along with me. So you'll be able to find this little hole-in-one kitty cat on my Kofi page. I'm going to put the link below. You don't need to donate. You don't need to give any money. If you do, that's amazing, but I'm not asking for it. And you do not have to have a Kofi account to download it. So just go there and grab it, and let's have some color fun, shall we? So before coloring the chocolate on this thing, I had to look it up online because I had a certain look I was going for. I wanted one of those thick chocolate glazed donuts. Yeah, like that, but I needed to see the bread. But yeah, that glazing's too thick. Oh my, yes. But I want dark chocolate with sprinkles. No, colorful sprinkles. Anyway, I found the reference I was looking for, but don't feel like you have to do the donut my way. I mean, there's so many options of how to do a donut. You could do them with a pink thick frosting. You could just do it so it's glazed. You could have so it's a chocolate strip on top of like a strawberry frost. And now I just want donuts. You know, the funniest part is, I bet not one of you was watching what I was coloring while those donuts were popping up on the screen. And for those of you who are actually interested in the coloring part of this color along, I'm just going back and forth. These two pencils you're looking at right here, that's it. That's the only two colors I'm using to make the bread part. Now, if you go and look at the reference, you could see that it's more of an orangish color. The color I wanted, they just didn't have in this palette. So I'm just jumping back and forth with this. It's kind of a light umber. It has like almost like a burnt orange. And then that yellow color, which is very close to like a sunset. It's like a muted yellow. So I'm just rocking these two colors back and forth, slowly layering them, trying to get that orangish, breadish, donutish look. Man, you hear that? These are some non-crush pigmented pencils. It feels like little rocks within this wood as I'm dragging it across the paper. You could just feel that sandpaper grip to this pigment. We are not talking high quality here. Okay, so clearly you've seen me do the bread. I did that whole section pretty much real time. So I'm going to jump around here and try to make this a little less painful. So cue the donut bread music. Okay, so I'm about to blend this in something you've heard me talk about before, or blender types. So what we're looking at here is soft to aggressive. Now, I want to go ahead and keep these little dark areas under the icing to show depth, but I also want to push the colors into the little white areas of the paper. So what I'm looking for is something that's aggressive without being overly aggressive, because then it'll blow out all my dark spots. So I'm going to go ahead and completely skip the aggressive side just because that's too much. And the soft is probably, anything over here is going to be too soft. So I need something that's going to be just enough to push those colors really hard, but not so hard that it blows out all the value. So you can see here, I made this little rack. It's holding all of my blenders, or all of the blenders on the market right now. And that goes from aggressive all the way to the really soft ones. But I don't actually use that thing. I just made that for a blender video I'm working on. But this right here, I do use religiously. It has my favorite blenders from each category, from aggressive to soft, and then a couple in between. So I could just grab them, whatever tool I need for the job really quick. And I have decided to go with Cezanne. I like this blender a lot. It was out of this or Grizaye. Both of them are mid-range, so they can get the job done without a doubt. This one is a little more right in the middle of the spectrum. So I should be able to keep that dark area while also pushing in the rest of the colors into all the spacing on the paper. I'm using color pencil paper. I always use the same exact stuff when I'm coloring. It's just enough tooth to really push the values of even a cheap pencil. And what happens with most blenders is it's going to soften the area and lighten the colors. This is pretty typical. So what I'll do is go back in with my darks, and I'll start popping out all my little highlighted areas. All the dark areas that just kind of got washed out a little bit, I'll just touch them back up. So there's nothing too fancy to the pink icing. So I'm going to try to do all of these little stripes with just two pinks. A base pink, which is just your typical bright pink. And then I'm going to use like this fuchsia color, which is just a step darker. I'm hoping it'll be dark enough that it pops out the highlights of this. Okay, I can see now I'm going to have to go into it to find my highlights. What I'm doing is I'm going to use the lightest brown that I'm going to use for my chocolates. And I'm going to make this light little ring going around the entire center area. What this is representing to me is where my highlights are going to be. That's so I don't get all wonky as I'm trying to remember where it's supposed to be. So like you could see on the little pink bit of icing there's that one little highlight in the middle. I need to make sure that stays consistent around the entire donut so it doesn't get too far away or too close to the center of the donut. So I'm going to use that little brown guide and just kind of fix exactly where my glare is going to be. And as you can see, I was wrong. I needed a darker color. Those two pinks were just too close together. So I had to go even deeper. So I'm using almost a burgundy, a very dark purple, and I'm going around the very outside and the very inside of the icing. And you could see the difference where that burgundy hits the pink. It definitely makes it look like there's a little more depth than the way I had it before. I feel as though icing music should be peaceful and romantic. Oh my goodness. Who hurt you, little icing? Tell us your tale. And on to the blending portion of the icing. I'm going to go with the Staedtler, and the reason I'm doing this is because I want to be able to go over those white areas without washing them out. So you can see there, the white is still there, even though I'm pushing both the pink on the left and the right side of it. If I was using something more aggressive, it'd pretty much erase that white completely out. So I do want to soften it, but at the same time, I don't want to erase it. I want you to be able to see that there is a highlight there. I just don't want it to be completely white. So I think this is the perfect blender for it. Now on to everybody's favorite, the chocolat. I want this to be a really rich, deep, dark chocolate as opposed to a milk chocolate. Now, just to cover what I'm about to do before I do it, you're seeing me go over it with the darkest color pencil first. Normally, I might lay down my base color, and the reason I do this is to remove the tooth from the paper. So when my dark hits it, it's not overly dark. But in this case, I'm going to want this chocolate to be really, really dark where it gets to the center. So I'm just going to straight out start with my darkest, and I'm going to work in layers. Now, I'm leaving this portion of the video, I'm not going to say it's not cut down or edited down, but I'm not going to time lapse as much for this first part because I want you to see the amount of layering I'm doing. I go over it with the dark, and right now I'm using the base brown, and then I'm going to use my lightest brown, which is almost a light umber, or maybe close to like a mustard. So I'm going to use these three colors, and only these three colors, over and over until all the white of the paper is pretty much gone. I'm not going to rely too much on my blender to remove the white. Now, I will eventually go into it because I'm going to want to smooth it out, and I'm going to really want to melt these colors together. But this is not a matter of me right off the bat doing as the absolute darkest I can with this brown. I'm going to work my dark, then my base, then my light, then my dark, base, light. I'm going to do this until all of a sudden that chocolatey goodness starts showing through on this icing. And if you look closely, you could see that little light line I did around earlier. I'm really going to use that now because that's where this really comes into play. I'm going to make sure that little line is being hit by that burnt mustard color because that's where the highlight is going to start. So I'm going to follow that little guideline all the way around to make sure this glare is consistent. I think the last time I used a pencil that was this abrasive was probably a Cyber Top, which was horrible. And this is definitely giving it a run for its money. Look at this. And the worst part about it is all it does when those pigments, they're not crushed. Look what it does to the paper. I might as well have taken a rock and drug it. So now it's made this imprint that I'm going to have to rely on my layers and a blender to remove the best I can. So now I need music to lift my spirit and correct this little faux pas. You know, it's right here. You could see those layers do start adding up and paying off. It's little by little. I'm not in any rush. So, I mean, just keep that in mind when you're doing this. You know, you're doing this to have fun. We want to learn as we go. And this is all part of it. This is just, it's one of those things, there's zero reason to rush it. Just enjoy the process. If you mess up, then you learn. But you could look at the little chocolate area that I've done, and this is all pre-blending, and it just has such a nice round shape to it. And as you could see, painfully see, it is just a matter of adding one layer at a time, not rushing it, and just making it slowly fall into that shape that you want, that color that you desire. And it really starts coming together. Okie doke, so the part I've been waiting for, and I know you've been waiting for, is the blending of the chocolate. I'm going with the Thornton here, and the reason for this, it's a little on the aggressive side. And the reason I want this is that white glare going across the top. I don't want it to be white. I definitely want to soften it up, and I'm afraid that a mid-range just won't push the colors where I want them to. I believe this is a mid-range blender, but it's on the aggressive side because I didn't want to overdo it. I don't want to completely lose that highlight either. So I'm just going to work this whole thing, just working small little areas at a time. I'm not putting very much pressure because I don't want to dull my colors, but I do want to get rid of all the white on the paper, and I want to give them a nice, soft layering effect. Okay, on to the last bit of chocolate. I'm going to use the exact same three colors as I used on the icing, and I'm just going to go from that really dark to my base to my light, and I'm just going to kind of work some shapes here, making little bubbles of highlight, and then pushing in my darks really deep to pop out those highlights. And honestly, I'm just kind of I'm learning this part right here. I'm not really sure, to be honest, how I'm going to make all this chocolate look. I'm using right here a Grizaye instead of the Cezanne. I think I like this one a little more, and at least for really just pushing these colors together. But here we go with the chocolate. So this is just a lot more rinse and repeat. I'm trying to find shapes here, and I'm just kind of seeing things as I go. So no real words of wisdom on this part. Oh my goodness, look at the scratches now that we're on a close-up shot. Look at all those little tiny micro scratches in the paper that I'm going to have to deal with later. I don't know that I've ever seen a pencil that is as gritty as these. So we're going to make it work. And right here, I'm using a Noor blender, and no real reason. I'm just kind of changing it up. And plus, these pencils have an extremely strong lead. I made a joke. Actually, the main reason I'm using this blender is because while working on the blender video, I am just really trying to push as much as I can and just get as much information as I can on all of these blenders that are out right now. So when I do put out the video, it'll be as informative as I possibly can make it. And here we go on to the sprinkles. This is going to add a little color to our donut. I'm just going to use 5 colors. I'm going to use blue, purple, yellow, green, red, and then I'm going to leave some white. I think overall this is going to really give our donut some character. And finally, the star of our show, this little kitty cat here. I'm going to go with gray because I'm just going to be lazy. I originally, in my head, I had this really cool idea where he would be white, but then he'd have, like, his stripes were going to be blue, and then he'd have accents of pink, like the tips of his ears would be pink, and his cheeks would be pink, his paws. But I really, as I was doing the sprinkles, I was thinking, yeah, that's going to mess him up. So I'm playing it safer than sorry. But I'd be really happy if one of y'all did that, the pink cat, so I could live vicariously through you. Other than that, I'm just going to use mostly 2 grays here. I'm going to use this base gray you're seeing, and then I'm going to use a darker gray. And I'm going to keep working those over and over until this cat really starts to look like a gray tabby. And then I'll probably go over his stripes with maybe a black. And then I'll push all those together until this picture is done. And I'm doing the finishing touches, and that is it. I'm not going to do a background on this just because I'm looking at the time. We're a little over 30 minutes, and I always feel weird about that stuff. I know some of you have personally asked me to make them longer, like around an hour or so. If you put anything in the comments, let it be that. If you've made it this far and haven't scrubbed past this part, let me know the length of these videos you would like to watch. It just will help me out in the future to give y'all something that y'all enjoy a little more. So I'm so glad you joined me. Go grab your picture for free on my Ko-Fi page.